Hello. Road to GH will reveal 3 stories, and the way GH writers are building them is making the audience sick and depressed, and it should be stopped immediately. First, Ava's bankruptcy story. Ava was once the embodiment of elegance, intelligence, and independence. With a tumultuous past behind her, she had mastered the art of control in love, business, and the silent battles among the elite. Her marriage to Nicholas had ended in a carefully negotiated divorce that granted her not only freedom, but also a substantial financial settlement from the powerful Cassadine fortune. It was meant to be a new beginning, a clean slate paved with wealth and the promise of stability. But everything came crashing down when the Cassadine family overturned the divorce agreement, stripping her of the assets that had once secured her future. The sudden reversal left Ava stunned, betrayed, and thrust into a financial nightmare that not even she could have anticipated. Though she had never been truly poor, even before the settlement, this loss hit harder than any previous setback. Her investments, once safely growing, now teetered on the edge of collapse without the cash flow to sustain them. Accounts were frozen, attorneys were hesitant, and her once reliable financial advisors now demanded payments up front. Ava found herself buried under the weight of unpaid loans, endless accounting meetings, and the painful reality of budget cuts. Her once sprawling lifestyle shrank into spreadsheets and sacrifice. The townhouse she loved became collateral, her prized jewelry was appraised for sale, and even daily expenses had to be reevaluated. Every decision, no matter how small, now came with a sense of urgency and humiliation. The ripple effects of her financial crisis began to show in how others treated her. Social circles she once ruled with quiet authority now whispered behind her back. Friends turned cold, allies disappeared, and at high society gatherings, she felt the sting of condescension in every glance. The admiration that once followed her had turned to pity, or worse, mockery. She maintained her composure in public, but inside, she wrestled with a growing sense of isolation and loss. Ava had built a reputation over years, one that demanded respect. Now, with each passing day, she watched it unravel, thread by thread. Still, Ava refused to fall without a fight. Pride bruised but not broken, she began the painstaking work of rebuilding. She revisited old contacts, attempted to reforge broken alliances, and explored new ventures, anything to reclaim her footing. But the world was no longer as forgiving. Offers of help came with conditions, and even well-meaning advice often masked opportunism. Some suggested bankruptcy as the most logical solution, a reset button that could ease the burden. But for Ava, bankruptcy symbolized failure. She couldn't bring herself to sign away her autonomy, even if it meant enduring the long, painful road of financial recovery on her own terms. Each day presented a new challenge. There were sleepless nights filled with panic, dreams of eviction, and courtroom drama that felt all too real. Meetings with financial advisors became torture sessions, where charts and figures reminded her just how far she had fallen. She no longer had the luxury of spontaneity. Every move was scrutinized, every dollar counted. Her instincts, once sharp and calculated, were dulled by constant anxiety. The Ava who once commanded a room with ease now found herself questioning everything, her choices, her worth, and whether she had the strength to rise again. Yet, deep within her, the fire remained. Ava was never just a woman of wealth or status, she was a survivor. She began drawing upon the skills that had built her empire in the first place: strategic thinking, bold vision, and relentless will. In a modest office space she rented discreetly, she started sketching out new business plans, searching for niches where she could rebuild. No longer concerned with prestige, Ava focused on survival. There were no assistants, no lavish lunches, only a woman and her determination to make something out of the ruins. What she had lost in status, she gained in clarity. Next, the disgusting love story of Drew and Willow. The romance between Drew and Willow had evolved into something deeply unsettling, an entanglement that revealed the worst in both individuals and slowly unraveled any semblance of integrity they once possessed. Drew, once viewed as noble and dependable, had gradually transformed into a manipulative figure, consumed by hidden motives and self-serving decisions. His alliance with Willow, far from being a redemptive love story, became a mirror reflecting his descent into moral ambiguity. No longer the man guided by loyalty and honor, Drew began making questionable choices, each one cloaked in charm and false intentions, further pulling him away from the core values that once defined him. Willow, on the other hand, emerged from her cancer survival story and supposed spiritual awakening only to plunge into an emotional labyrinth of denial and hypocrisy. Instead of seeking clarity and peace after such a traumatic period, she found herself tangled in a relationship built on illusion and selective blindness. Her connection with Drew wasn't grounded in emotional intimacy or genuine support. It was forged through mutual escapism. Willow clung to Drew as a figure of false comfort, turning away from her principles whenever they stood in the way of this new and toxic attachment. In doing so, she became unrecognizable to those who once admired her quiet strength. Their relationship, hidden in plain sight, seemed to thrive on secrecy and performative understanding. Behind closed doors, Drew fed Willow idealized versions of the world, shielding her from hard truths while further isolating her from those who questioned their closeness. She, in turn, rewarded him with unflinching trust, even as signs of betrayal flickered around them. They existed in a delusional space where consequence was suspended and only their selfish emotional needs mattered. Every moment they shared became a testament to how far they had fallen, from grace, from honesty, and from the people they used to be. There was a time when Drew and Willow inspired sympathy, each battling immense loss and hardship. But now, their shared story was one of stagnation and moral decay. Even as their friends and family grew wary of their bond, the two remained wrapped in a cocoon of willful ignorance. Conversations were filled with half-truths and veiled resentments, and the silence between them grew heavier with each passing day. What had once been seen as quiet companionship was now recognized for what it truly was, a suffocating codependence built on avoidance and manipulation. The looming secret between Drew and Nina had the potential to blow this carefully curated facade apart. The very idea that Drew, while entwined with Willow, might be hiding a deeper, more compromising relationship with Nina was enough to send ripples through the already fragile web of lies. It introduced a level of betrayal that Willow could neither rationalize nor forgive. Her illusion of control and understanding would shatter under the weight of such deceit, leaving her exposed, humiliated, and forced to confront her role in enabling Drew's descent. When the truth inevitably emerges, it won't just mark the end of their romantic storyline, it will serve as a brutal wake-up call for both. Willow will have to face the uncomfortable truth about her own hypocrisy, while Drew will be forced to reckon with the damage he's caused, not just to her but to himself. Their split will be less of a heartbreak and more of a long overdue cleansing, a severing of a bond that was doomed from the start. In the end, their love story will be remembered not for its passion or redemption, but for its grotesque unraveling. It was a relationship that exposed their flaws, magnified their weaknesses, and drove them further away from the people they were meant to become. And when the final spark of that illusion burns out, what remains will not be sorrow, but a strange sense of relief, because something so corrosive was never meant to last. Next, the disgusting love story of Drew and Willow. The relationship between Drew and Willow began under the guise of shared grief, emotional vulnerability, and mutual understanding, but as time went on, it slowly morphed into something much darker and disturbingly hollow. What was once seen as two broken souls leaning on each other soon revealed itself to be an emotionally manipulative dynamic masked as healing. Drew, who had long carried the image of a principled, honorable man, began to deteriorate the moment he allowed himself to blur the lines between comfort and control. Rather than helping Willow find strength, he used her pain to validate his own bitterness, drawing her deeper into a connection that served his needs far more than hers. Willow, for her part, seemed almost willfully blind to the changes in Drew's character. Having survived a harrowing medical journey and endured years of emotional turmoil, one might have expected her to emerge with clarity and strength. Instead, she retreated into a cocoon of denial, clinging to Drew as if he were a life raft, even as the waters grew increasingly murky. Her need for peace and simplicity became a justification for turning away from difficult truths. In doing so, she allowed Drew to slowly dismantle her sense of discernment, exchanging her once fierce moral compass for a passive role in his growing agenda. It was a betrayal of the woman she used to be. Compassionate, thoughtful, and unwilling to accept lies. Together, Drew and Willow became a pair that brought out the worst in each other. Drew's obsession with control masked as protection, and Willow's need for emotional safety disguised as love, fed into a toxic cycle of dependency. The more he concealed from her under the pretense of shielding her from stress, the more she leaned into him, praising his supposed devotion without questioning his motives. In this toxic tango, honesty was replaced with selective transparency, and affection was built on a house of cards. The very relationship that was supposed to be restorative became corrosive, eroding their identities with every passing day. Behind the carefully crafted facade, Drew's darkness was growing. What began as frustration and resentment about his standing in the Quartermain family evolved into calculated behavior, hidden alliances, and secret communications. Most damning of all was his clandestine relationship with Nina, an entanglement that made his connection to Willow not only emotionally false, but ethically repugnant. Even as he stood by Willow's side, whispering reassurances and painting himself as a steady figure, he was entangled with the woman who had caused Willow deep pain. It was a betrayal not just of romantic trust, but of emotional integrity. The idea that Drew could be intimate, emotionally or otherwise, with Nina while presenting himself as Willow's anchor was nothing short of devastating. The fallout from this secret, once revealed, would undoubtedly leave Willow emotionally shattered. Not because Drew had chosen someone else, but because he had lied so convincingly for so long. She would be forced to confront the reality that her trust had been misplaced, that the man she believed had her best interests at heart had been silently undermining her for his own gain. It would expose her vulnerability not as a strength, but as a weakness Drew had learned to exploit. Their eventual collapse would not be an explosive end marked by passion or heartbreak, it would be a quiet, aching unraveling. Willow's eyes would be opened not by confrontation, but by realization. The silence between them would grow heavier, the stolen glances colder, and the weight of everything unsaid would finally crush whatever illusion of love remained. She would begin to see Drew clearly for the first time, not as a hero, but as a man who wore a mask too well. And with that clarity would come shame, not only in him, but in herself for allowing it all to unfold unchecked. Finally, the story of Joe's parents and Brooke Lynn's escape the time for vague hints and emotional buildup has run its course. Now, the story of Giovanni, Gio, Palmieri is demanding resolution, not more stalling. From the moment Gio stepped into Port Charles, the mystery of his true parentage has hovered like a quiet storm, slowly gathering force. Viewers have been fed breadcrumbs, glances of concern from Lois, subtle shifts in Brooke Lynn's demeanor, and cryptic conversations hinting at something far more complex than Joe's casual introduction as a charming musician. The emotional groundwork has been laid with care, but if the reveal doesn't come soon, the suspense risks turning stale. Lois has grown increasingly anxious, her worry over Joe's origins bubbling closer to the surface in every scene. While her protective instincts are understandable, her repeated hesitations and tearful pauses have begun to feel cyclical. The tension between wanting to shield her son and fearing the collapse of their carefully constructed family narrative is evident, but without a forward push in the plot, these moments have become less impactful. The time for secrecy is over. Lois's silence now feels more like a disservice to Gio than a safeguard, especially with the truth no longer fully in her control. Brooke Lynn has played a pivotal role in setting the stage for this reveal. Her bond with Gio has grown richer, more textured, as the two have shared meaningful moments layered with emotion, music, and subtle hints of something deeper. But now those moments risk becoming repetitive too. The continued emphasis on their connection only underscores what many viewers have already suspected. Brooke Lynn is more than a cousin figure in Joe's life, and the truth that's about to shatter their current dynamic has been lingering too long in the shadows. The real shift came when Dante began to unravel the truth on his own. His discovery that Brooke Lynn was once involved in the decision to give up a child for adoption lit a fuse that could ignite the entire storyline. Dante, with his law enforcement instincts and personal connection to everyone involved, is uniquely positioned to uncover what others have tried to bury. His confrontation with Brooke Lynn won't just be emotional, it will be explosive. Whether she's ready or not, the wall she's built is about to crumble under the weight of guilt, history, and a truth too big to remain hidden. May Sweeps presents the perfect moment to bring everything to light. With stakes high and tension mounting, the stage is set for a dramatic, heartbreaking, and ultimately cathartic reveal. The fallout won't just affect Gio. It will ripple through Lois, Brooke Lynn, Dante, and the extended Quartermaine family. Loyalties will be tested, relationships fractured, and new questions about Joe's place in Port Charles will emerge. The emotional impact of such a revelation can serve as the foundation for months of rich storytelling. For Gio, the aftermath will be nothing short of earth-shattering. The life he thought he knew, his identity, his family, his history, will be rewritten in a moment. Trust will be broken, and the sense of betrayal could send him spiraling or strengthen him, depending on how he processes the truth. Will he lean into his Quartermaine roots, or pull away from the very people who kept the truth from him? His journey forward will be shaped by how those closest to him handle the aftermath. This isn't just a turning point for Gio, it's a rebirth. With the truth finally out, he'll have to navigate a world that no longer feels familiar. But from the ruins of deception, a new path can be forged, one where Gio defines himself on his own terms for the first time. Whether that means embracing the family that lied to him or forging a new identity altogether, the story ahead promises emotional depth, confrontation, and transformation. The build-up has been long, but the payoff, if done right, could be one of the most powerful reveals General Hospital has delivered in years.